What's up, y'all? It's KB, and I love movies. And I'm really enjoying the spooky season. We've had a lot of great guests, a lot of returning guests, but I really wanted to spotlight and highlight some new guests to the conversation. And we have new guests here joining us today. I had the pleasure of hanging out for a weekend with this lovely lady you see above me. And now I get to meet her co host and spend some time with him. From the Carnage Report, we have Julie and Nick joining us today. How are you doing?
I'm doing good.
I'm doing well, thanks.
Good, good. Um, tell us about the podcast.
So we like to focus on new horror. We do a rundown of news, trailers, things that are upcoming, acquisitions, things like that, and then we chat more in depth about what we call a feature presentation. So that's a new movie we've recently seen either streaming or in theaters. Occasionally we'll bust out an old movie if it's new to streaming or if we just feel like it because it's our show.
Yeah.
And even though we've known each other a very long time, we have not been close friends. So we also have a little getting to know you portion where we get to know each other a little bit better.
Nice, nice. Anything to add to that, Nick?
Julie is the sort of brains of the operation and gathers most of the links and all of that, and I'm kind of the person who puts it all together in post.
Nice.
Nick is our technical wizard.
Nice. I also, on occasion, once in a while, have a podcast called The Center Seat with my friend Kate, and we try to do the same thing. We'll go to a screener and see something new, and that will be the focus of the episode, and then we'll have something associated with it. So, if we see Violent Night, we're going to talk about our favorite Christmas movies or Christmas horror movies or whatever the case may be. We've gone a little sporadic from episode to episode, but like around the pandemic, we were really hot and heavy as far as like every week we'd see a screener, every week we'd do a podcast. If there was nothing new in the theaters, we would cover something streaming, like you said. So how long has the podcast been around?
We started in March of 2022. Yeah, because our first movie was X.
Yep.
Nice.
Yep, we're about to record our 40th episode. We're bi-weekly, every other week, so gives a little breathing room. Sometimes we might be a little late to some news because of that, but that's all right. It's not earth-shattering stuff.
Yeah, it was kind of fun because, like, literally, we had been a podcast for 2 episodes, and then our friends over at Cinepunks were like, "Hey, do you want to be on our network?" And we've been with them ever since. Like, literally, we had been a podcast for like a month.
I don't even think we'd actually put an episode out. I think we recorded it and then we talked about it would be cool if we had a network, and then we talked about it on Twitter, and Cinepunks was like, welcome. We're like, oh, okay, cool.
Awesome. That was easy.
Yeah. Speaking it into existence.
I'm going to put up the place where people can find you. You add to it.
Yep, we're on Instagram and Twitter, or whatever you want to call it. And right now we're putting out a lot of lists of horror movies throughout the decades and things for people. If you're into horror, you know what to watch. But if you're into horror, you have friends who know you're into horror, and they're like, "What do I watch? It's spooky season." And we had a couple people ask us, and I was like, if I'm making a list for my friends, I might as well make a list for your friends too. So if you go on our Twitter or Instagram, you can find all of our lists that can give you things to recommend and things to fill your own gaps.
Pretty cool. Pretty cool. So check them out, folks. For me, that's always a hard question. It's like I used to DJ and people would say, what's a good new album? I don't know what you like necessarily.
Exactly.
And the same thing with like suggesting movies. It's like if you tell me you want to watch something for spooky season, I don't know if you like vintage horror, like 50s, 60s, even like corny 70s movies. I don't know if you just want like the hocus pocus fare. Do you want like, most of the movies I'm covering this year is along the spooky, creepy line, which doesn't necessarily mean horror in some cases. Alien could be a spooky or creepy movie, but not many people would say that's a Halloween movie. So it all depends on your audience. So you have to know your friends in order
Yeah.
to be able to recommend something to them. So I get it.
Yeah.
I get
You got to ask a few exploratory questions.
it. Exactly. And you're like, wow, I didn't know this was going to turn into a test. So.
Yeah.
It usually does.
Yes.
Yes.
Because if you ask me for a Halloween movie, I'm going to tell you a movie that was set at Halloween because, but people who don't watch horror, they just mean a horror movie, and horror's year round for me. So if I'm looking for a Halloween movie, I'm looking for the season.
Exactly. A lot of my followers are physical media collectors, so I always ask the question, show of hands, who's a big physical media collector? There's always one in a bunch.
Well, I mean,
yeah. What's some recent pickups that made your shelf?
They haven't made the shelf yet. They're currently sitting on the floor to my right. But Waxwork Records had a big 40% off sale at the beginning of October. And so I picked up all of the Rob Zombie Presents line. So that is Spider Baby, Carnival of Souls, and White Zombie, naturally. I haven't had a chance to crack them open yet, unfortunately. I'm itching to do it, but was going to do it last night, but we went to Spirit Halloween instead.
Nice.
Yes.
I had to, one, pick up the shirt, two, when I well, foreshadowing, I wore it for a reason, we'll say. So we'll get into that. Yeah, this week I just went light myself. I just picked up I went and got the Evil Dead Rise Special Edition because the first one was bare bones, and it's also a steelbook, which is kind of dope. Nice. And I don't know. I enjoyed this movie at the beginning of the year. It was kind of like a nice soft fare as far as the horror genre into the new year. So I picked up the steelbook of Megan Unrated. And I liked the movie. I mean, it wasn't too over the top. It was kind of cute in a way. But at the same time, it was like, I could wait for the 4K. I know it's coming. Don't just give me a Blu-ray when I could get a 4K 6 months later. So glad I waited for those two. And I guess I was rewarded. So same thing. They haven't made my shelf yet. This is my 4K shelf. So I have a friend who will not put anything on her shelf until she's watched it.
Fair.
It's
I did that with records.
Thing. And I know another guy who, if it's something he hasn't seen, he has to watch it within the first 2 weeks of purchasing it. If it's something he's seen before, he'll just, shelf it, whatever. So give them both credit. I couldn't do it.
Both of your new acquisitions are movies we have done episodes on.
Nice. All right. So we're going to get into what I call my spooky season remix of my 5 takes questions. I have this segment at the end of every conversation called the 5 takes. It's the 5 questions I ask at the end of every conversation. So for the spooky season, I just a little switched around. So we're going to let Julie start with this first question, and then you can give your answer as well, Nick, and we'll go back and forth. So starting with number 1, name the horror movie that made you fall in love with the genre, Julie.
That's a tough one. I grew up watching a lot of horror, both with my mom and my dad separately. So I will put that my dad really loved the Puppet Master movies, the tiny little killer puppets, and also my mom really loved Motel Hell. So those are probably the two that got me into it combined.
Nice. What about you, Nick?
I would say the 2 horror movies we rented most growing up were Monster Squad and Popcorn. But I'm going to go with Popcorn as being like the one that like got me into like horror, like where it's like weird and splattery and gross, as opposed to, like Monster Squad is definitely like Goonies with monsters. But I'd have to go with Popcorn because that is the movie that is the poster is hanging up directly above me.
Nice. Monster Squad. It's like I'm born in the 70s, raised in the 80s, so I consider myself an 80s kids. But a lot of 90s kids in that same fair have this great affection for the Monster Squad, and it's like as far as physical media collecting, they want a really good copy, and they're finally getting a 4K, and people are excited about it. But it's a nice way to ease your kids into in the genre, and it's also a nice way for them to explore like the older stuff, like get to know the Universal monsters, kind of like in reverse. Like watch this, and if you're interested, hey, let's go back to the early 30s, show you some Bela Lugosi, show you some Dracula and Frankenstein and werewolf and so forth, and just go from there. You know, a class. That's how I got into it. I'm not like a 365er as I call it, but you know, it's like those early Universal monster movies that would come on at midnight on a Saturday night when I should have been asleep. Those are the ones that made me appreciate the spooky and the creepy element of horror movies. And then, of course, raised in the 80s, you gotta love the slashers and all the icons and everything. It just went from there. I mean, Julie and I saw some great horror movies back in April at Panic Fest. So yeah, it's a growing and adoring love affair with the genre, I'll say. There's still some subgenres of it I could easily just
Yeah.
yeah.
There's enough variety out there though that you can skip a whole subgenre and still have plenty to choose from.
Yeah.
Too much to choose from, and sometimes.
For real.
Yeah, and we're actually going to talk about one of them, but we'll get into it. All this foreshadowing. All right, so number 2 is where we're going to spend the majority of the time. We didn't discuss how you guys are going to break it up. I leave that up to you. But we're going to start with this question and say, name some of your favorite spooky or creepy movies.
You want to go first?
No, you go first.
Okay. Julie and I divided this up. We're each gonna do 2, and then we're gonna do 1 for that we both agreed on.
Cool.
So I'm gonna start out with the one that I think is like for normal folks, as opposed to one that goes really hard. And that is Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
Yeah.
2010 movie from director Eli Craig. That's not Eli. Yeah, and it is like basically take the slasher movie and show it from the perspective of the antagonist, and get your. It is a comedy. It is hilarious. It is 2 friends who buy a cabin in the woods and they're gonna fix it up, and these college kids get scared, and then horrible things happen. They end up having, as they say, a doozy of a day, and it's hilarious. It's bloody, but it's not too bloody, and the blood is kind of hilarious. And it's a really good like sort of thing if you want to watch something that is definitely creepy and gross and violent, but also lighthearted at the same time. Like it's a movie where you end up having a real blast. And it's definitely one of my favorites to watch with a group of folks.
Yeah,
and really touching. It's a really touching.
Yeah,
scene.
I was just about to say that. It's a little tender too.
About embracing who you are.
Yeah.
I
And
do think it's funny that you said it's not too bloody when there's literally a wood chipper scene.
It's one of those where like every time I'm like, it's not that bloody.
Fargo.
And then I start watching it. I was like, oh. Also that
These crazy college kids. College kids, we got your friend.
Appearances are deceiving on both sides of the equation for that movie, which is what I really love about it.
That's a great way. That should have been the subtitle right there. Appearances are deceiving. This is a great movie to me. It's a nice way, like you have that friend that's like, oh, I don't like horror movies, and you're like, but you love comedies. And we know there's no such thing as a modern comedy anymore. What do we get? 2, 3 a year? So let's combine this thing that you say you don't like with this thing that you love and see what happens when the peanut butter and jelly mix. It's a beautiful thing. I love it. And I was telling you before we started that I showed it to my wife, and it was funny because you go from like belly laughing to like, oh, And when you come across movies like that, of course, I only saw it on video. I did not see it in the theater, which I really wish I did. Imagine our local Screenland Armor Theater opening night and being there with a bunch of horror fans or comedy fans or both and watching this movie. That's all I kept thinking about while I was watching it on this rewatch here. I was like, this is a good theater experience to have, I could imagine. So yeah, it's so funny. Did either of you see it in the theater?
No.
I didn't.
Yeah, it's one of those that people discover like after. And I've yet to come across someone who saw it in the theater. So if you saw it in the theater, put it in the comments, because I would love to hear your initial reaction and the crowd's initial reaction if you saw it in the theater. So that's definitely it's a good start, like you say, a good introduction video or a movie for people to see. So good one. What do you have, Julie?
Okay, I have a different kind of entry level horror, which is The Guest. So this is how you get your friends who just like action movies and not horror. And I think you could almost say that this is an action movie, although I'm still putting it in horror because it is set at Halloween and I find it to be horror. It's directed by Adam Wingard. It stars Dan Stevens, written by Simon Barrett. So great cast. It also has Micah Monroe from It Follows, as well as various other horror movies. It's essentially, a man comes to a family's home and says that he served in the military with their brother who was lost in battle, and he promised he would come and, say his their family members final goodbyes, and maybe he's not being totally honest, but maybe he is. We don't know until later, and he's friendly but too friendly, or odd, but he's also from the military where people can, get a little, he's been through some trauma, so you can explain away the odd behavior, and when you get to the end and you find out what's really going on, it's different even than you would have thought. And it really goes from, well, this is like a psychological thriller to this is kind of an unhinged action moment.
Oh wow. Yeah. The one thing we've been discussing all month long as we go through various movies are these movies that have twist upon twist. Not your simple M. Night Shyamalan, we wait for the end and, oh, you didn't expect it, but here's a twist. It's like, oh, I got this figured out. Then there's a twist. And then you're like, oh, okay. And then there's another twist. And it just adds to it.
Yeah, this one's definitely like, something's not as it seems, and you think most of the time you're like, I think I know what's probably going on. I don't necessarily know why, and then they get into it, and you're like, oh wow, okay, wow, that's not what I thought at all.
Yeah.
You're distracted by Dan Stevens' abs. I think that's part of the problem.
It is, and
there's some very pretty people in this movie, and you get distracted.
This movie definitely made it okay that Dan Stevens left Downton Abbey. It's like, oh, he's leaving to do this. Okay, things like this, bring it on. Let's have it.
It's like I'll allow. Yeah. So, first experience with the same thing, video streaming kind of situation.
Yeah, I think probably streaming. I definitely didn't see it in the theater. I don't know why. I think it probably didn't open very widely, and I just missed it. I may have seen it in the theater since in a repertory screening type of situation, but I can't remember for sure. But it's something that it's on various streaming platforms, so I watch it pretty much annually now.
Yeah. What about you, Nick?
Yeah, I came to it. It was one of those I wanted to see, and it wasn't. I want to say it wasn't playing anywhere around here, and so I just impatiently waited for it to come out on video, and then immediately went and rented it, and then of course bought it because it is that perfect action horror where it's like you were saying earlier, is Alien a horror movie or a sci-fi movie? Is the Terminator an action movie, or it's a slasher movie. Terminator is a slasher movie. And
yeah, we've determined that this month. Every time Terminator is mentioned, like in the chat or whatever, there's always one person, not always the same person, but always one person who will pipe in and say, the Terminator is a horror movie. It is a slasher movie. I'm like, yeah, it is. Especially if you consider Linda Hamilton a final girl. So you could just go with that. Yeah. Good choice. Good choice. You're going to keep bouncing back and forth?
Yeah.
Let's do it. My next one is the one for the true fans, the true cult, like however you want to phrase it, and it is Lucio Fulci's Zombie, which I'm trying to make the face move. There we go.
To your left. Oh, the lenticular.
Yeah.
Look at you.
Yeah. It is probably, I would say this is, in a very weird sense, this is my comfort movie. Like, this is a movie what I used to refer to as like a Sunday morning hangover movie, where, because I've seen it so many times, and it's comfortable, and it's a horror movie, but it's not a loud horror movie. It's from 79. It's known by a myriad titles. Zombie 2, because it was an Italian sequel to George Romero's Dawn of the Dead, which was released in Italy as Zombie. It's also known as Zombie Flesh Eaters, which is kind of my favorite title of it. Also, like Island of the Living Dead, Voodoo, just all kinds of things. It is essentially about a Caribbean island that is cursed by voodoo, and then their zombies, bodies begin to reanimate, not just the recently dead, but the long, long dead start bursting out of graveyards and stuff like that. And it is very gory when it needs to be. People are torn apart. There is definitely something shoved through an eyeball, because it's a Lucio Fulci movie, and what's a Lucio Fulci movie without eye trauma? And it has one of probably my top 3 horror scores of all time by Fabio Frizzi, that has been reissued, and again, tons of different versions and formats. And I can't recommend it enough. Like, if you want something that is mellow yet strangely intense.
Yeah, and the score is like oddly happy.
Yeah,
you get like this Caribbean, like, and then you get like these like drawn out like Mellotron chords, where it's just like choruses of voiceless people making you understand that everyone is going to die.
Yeah, and a zombie's gonna fight a shark.
That is the best.
That is
such a good scene. It wasn't even part of the movie.
Oh my gosh!
Originally, like somebody else shot it for it, and it got into a fight with Lucio Fulci about it.
The funny
it's like iconic.
The people that haven't seen that movie somehow know about that scene. And what I like to say is the zombie was doing capoeira against the shark underwater. So for no other reason, with practical effects, that alone is worth watching this movie. The thing I like about Zombie, dare I say love about Zombie, is that as far as the lore, we always talk about different monsters, different lores, like in vampires and such. It's one that kind of mixes the old school kind of undead lore, going all the way back to the 30s with White Zombie, to more of the stuff that we know modernly. All they didn't do now is run fast like World War Z. But I mean, it combines the two into one movie, and it plays with the two very delicately. I mean, the way the movie starts is not the way it ends. It's not even the same location between the beginning and the end. Well, in a sense it is, but it kind of revisits and comes back. But yeah, once you get to, like you said, the Caribbean island, you start to get that old school undead feel about it, where you have the voodoo and you have the sensation of the undead, whereas before that, it's all they didn't do is hold their arms straight out, and you're in a Romero film. So it's that nice combination. And the gore. The gore is beautiful. It's, people talk about different things like The Thing or American Werewolf in London and all that, about great examples of practical effects. I don't think this movie gets enough credit for great practical effects in a classic horror movie.
Oh, I don't think any Lucio Fulci movie gets nearly enough credit for being like very, very, very like practically done. Like everything's in camera and it's just gross.
Yeah.
And I mean that lovingly.
And you mentioned in passing the eye scene, and you compare that earlier this month we spoke about City of the Living Dead. He's like, how can I top that? I think you did a good job. But as a physical media collector, it was nice to crack open the Blue Underground 4K and look at that. It looks really good in 4K. So if you collect physical media, don't skim on it. Just get the 4K. It's beautiful. Blue Underground is always a little more expensive, but it's worth it.
Oh, and you get tons. Like the Blu-ray I have comes with the soundtrack as a bonus disc.
Yeah. And like you said earlier, it's a beautiful score. So you get to all these different mixes of music, but same dread. Good choice. What's next? This is a good
all right.
good
Up next
here.
Yes, I'm going to make a case for the found footage genre, which I used to be the person who was like, I'm not a fan. And lately, I guess I am, because I've turned on it, and a lot of it is to do with Hell House LLC. This is a found footage movie that's sort of set up like a documentary where they're showing the footage that they found. So you've got some fake documentary talking heads, and then interspersed with the footage, and not too far in, it becomes almost exclusively the found footage. Some folks, a group of friends from New York, run haunted houses, and they have found an abandoned hotel in upstate New York where they're going to make a haunted house. So you've already got a reason why they're filming. They've chosen to film the process of making the haunted house. So that makes sense. So you're not like, why are they even filming this? And it's filmed by someone, in story, who knows what they're doing. So it's not that shaky cam that you get sometimes with found footage where it's like, we're just bringing a camera because we have one. We don't really know what to do with it. So I think it's a little bit easier to watch than some. It doesn't give you that like car sick feeling sometimes you get with found footage. And to me, it is genuinely scary every time I watch it. And I watch a lot of horror, so I don't get scared very often. But the Hell House franchise is scary, and especially this first one. It was from 2015, written and directed by Stephen Cognetti. I just think it's a genuinely scary movie, and an example of found footage well done and easily approachable by people who think they don't like found footage.
Yeah.
And set at Halloween. So I tried to pick things that fit the spooky season.
Nice.
And I'm also genuinely afraid of haunted house. Sure, I'm afraid of a haunted house, but I'm afraid of haunted house attractions. I don't go to them. So it's like getting to go to one without having to be in one. I can turn it off at any time.
Mm-hmm. No. Don't want to see that.
Yeah. I'm done. Click.
Anything to add to that, Nick? I'm just that is a movie. Like, I am also not like a huge found footage fan, but like that series is so good that like they announced there's a prequel coming out soonish called The Haunting of Carmichael Manor. And I got a screener for it in my email this morning, and I am very excited to watch it. And that is probably what I will do as soon as we get done with this, because I'm very excited to see this new movie. Like, because the series is just they're all solid and just uncomfortably terrifying.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's something about that first one though. Same thing. I agree with both of you. I'm not a found footage fan. Earlier this month, we revisited Blair Witch Project, and it's sad that some people just think, that's where the subgenre began. I mean, Cannibal Holocaust, if you want to go back further. But there were other movies before Blair Witch, but I think that really popularized the subgenre, and it kind of went from there. But the majority of them, you can miss me with that. But there's a few, and I just have to say, as the month goes on, there's a lot of new movies that I never saw, or the most blatant one is my friends couldn't believe that I went 31 years without seeing Candyman. I'll just keep putting myself on blast. I know your face, everyone else's reaction, but a lot of great movies, and there were a few that I watched this month, including the Poughkeepsie tapes, where that's another great example of set up as a documentary but found footage. Just creepy as all get out, leaves you with those with those feelings of just hard to shake moments. And the thing about this is that you're watching the found footage, you know it's fake, but you get so involved. It's very interactive and it draws you in. Ganjam Haunted Asylum, another great example. If you haven't seen that, it draws you in, so you feel like you said, Julie, you're at the haunted house. So as they're experiencing things, you're experiencing things, even if it's just mentally. But you get a little bit of the heart racing, and you don't know what's around the corner because neither do they. So and the whole thing is great on the rewatch. I was telling you guys before, though, somebody spoiled the ending for me. Yeah, that was rough because the ending is everything. It's the bow on that package, So, but it still plays well. It still plays well on a rewatch. So, great movie. All right. We're moving into number 5 at this point, right?
Yep.
And this is a group pick?
This is a group pick. This is Trick or Treat.
Got the shirt.
Or just for you.
It's just it's outside of actual Halloween, it's probably the best movie set at Halloween, I think.
It's arguably the most Halloween-y.
Yes.
Yes. And it's so heartening to see this movie, and I think the reason part of the reason to love it is that it's an underdog story, because this is a movie that was supposed to come out in 2007. Like, I saw trailers for it, like on things, and then it didn't get a theatrical release, and then it just got dropped to DVD in 2009, and then every horror fan I knew had been hearing about it for 2 years through like people who saw it at like festivals and stuff, and then went and got it. And it is also like not just like the most Halloween-y horror movie, it is also like probably top tier anthology movie, in that all of the segments interact with each other, and the wraparound story interacts with all of the other stories. It is like the anthology movie. It is the platonic ideal of it. And it's set in a town that loves Halloween, and all the performances are great, and all the stories are great, and everybody has their favorite segment. And it's
and also, kudos for being like, I'm going to make some rules for Halloween. Like, it just sets rules that no one's ever bothered to set for Halloween before. We've never had Sam being like this little whatever he is, who's like, he'll leave you alone. You have to follow these rules that no one's ever told you, but we just know in our hearts.
The thing I love about this movie, and luckily I've never seen it on DVD, never seen it on Blu-ray, and then I got the announcement that for a limited run it was coming out theatrically for the first time. When I read for the first time, I gotta go. And it was like 3:00 in the afternoon. I could count, there were 4 people in the theater. It was the last day of the run, and we just sat there. And you're spaced out when you don't want to be too close to people, but if I could be like hippy dippy for a minute, there was like a kinetic connection, because we were all, I didn't know who saw it before or whatever, but we were all enjoying it on a level like, wow, this is a fun movie. This is a real Halloween movie, like you said. And I adore Sam. I adore Sam. And it's just it makes you want to like I call it creep show for Halloween because that's the level I put it at. It's like first Stephen King creep show. It's like that to me at this point.
We saw it. My wife and I went and saw it in the theater. Like we watch it every Halloween.
Yeah.
And I was just like, "Do you want to go with me? Like we're gonna like Julie and I are gonna do it for the podcast, but like I want to go see it in the theater if you want to go, even though we've both seen it, a dozen plus times."
Yeah.
And we saw it like the night it screened at our local Regal, and it was packed.
Nice.
And it is maybe the most fun I've had in a theater post-COVID. Like everybody was just down for it. Like I assume everyone had seen it before because everybody like just got it. Like nobody, it was
Yeah. You mentioned before everyone ends up having their favorite sequence. Of course, there are going to be people who have not seen it, but just by mentioning what it is, what is your favorite sequence?
School bus.
I think mine is the ladies' night. I don't know if it has a specific name. I call it ladies' night.
Costume party, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. I think I'm with you. I really like that aspect because it went places I didn't expect it to. And then it was like, oh yeah, this is a horror movie.
Yeah.
It just was like a nice little reminder. Oh, you're getting swayed by the story and the beauty.
And it hits kind of all the points of Halloween. Like there's spooky Halloween and there's sexy costume Halloween. It's two different experiences, but they come together in that sequence.
Yeah. For better or worse.
Yeah.
And for some people, that is their night to play, under disguise. Take that sentence however you'd like to.
I believe the columnist Dan Savage refers to Halloween as straight people pride.
I'll take that. That's fair.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that. Yeah, but it's a shame that this movie, went through such a tumultuous start, never got that theatrical run after all that hype was built up. And when it finally did, X amount of years later, it was limited. I know if it got a full run, so many other people would have been there because over the years, once again, it became like a cult classic. So that experience you had on opening night, Nick, I could see that happening for the majority of the run.
And if nothing else, at least they get, whatever licensing for Sam essentially being the mascot of Spirit Halloween.
Yeah, for a little while until they lose that licensing. They're about to lose a couple of them after this year, I believe. But yeah, I love it. I love it. I don't know if you could see, I got a little Sam coffee mug like right there.
Nice.
So
I made my husband a very epic Sam costume for Halloween last year, including a paper mache giant burlap covered head.
Nice. I thought you were going to say you went like real burlap. I was like, okay, that's dedication.
It was real burlap, but over a paper mache ball.
Ah, okay.
Because it's got to have that big giant round head. And since he's a full-size human and not Sam size, it has to be that much bigger.
Yes, for those of you that don't know, Sam is about the equivalent height of,
he's a toddler.
Like a 6-year-old. Yeah.
Yeah. But, F around and find out.
Yeah.
That's all I will say.
Don't cross Sam.
No.
He looks cute, but he can do some damage.
So I have to tell you that your movie selections were definitely on point. That is the assignment, and you understood it. When I saw your list, I was like, yeah, I could get with this. I could get with this. Couple of nice rewatches, something new to me. Yeah, I could get with this. So kudos to you both. Great job. Great job.
It is our bread and butter.
If you needed content, you could just run through this. So, All right. So let's run through the rest of these questions and land this plane. So, number 3, name a horror movie that everybody loves, but you can't stand, Julie.
Oh gosh. There's probably a lot. You know what though? I'll go kind of recent, and we covered this one, but it just, the more I think about it, the more I just was not into X, and everybody else seemed to really like it, and I was just like, it didn't hit for me. It did not land. It's just fine. So I guess I don't hate it, but
yeah, but
there's very little that I actually hate. So
I'll do a follow-up question to that. Did you appreciate it more after seeing Pearl?
I haven't seen Pearl yet.
See Pearl,
Okay.
and then see if you have the desire to rewatch X. Because I know for me, that was the first thing I wanted to do as the credits rolled on Pearl. I wanted to go back and watch X again. So I don't know where you fall in line with that, Nick, especially since that was your first episode. So your first episode, you ripped a movie apart?
No, I don't think we've ever ripped a movie apart. I think we always find something to like. Everybody go ahead. That may change. That may change on the next episode. I haven't watched our next one yet, but I saw Nick's Letterboxd review, and it should be a fun episode.
What about you, Nick?
The Babadook.
Oh, yeah, that too.
I think your opinion of the Babadook changes depending on how whether you've had children or your experience parenting children goes. And I just have a whole thing about like movies where you have kids who are screaming throughout it, like that Cujo. I can't do it. Like I have had to I dealt with, no, not my thing. Like I understand like it's a movie about grief and moving on and like dealing with difficulties and things like that, but it's just a kid who screams all the time. I'm just like, I don't want to watch this. Like it's no fun for me.
And they really waste the Babadook. He's such an icon, and I don't feel like he's used to his fullest advantage because of the screaming kid.
Now, as a parent, you understand why that's horrific, though. Especially if it's happening as 2:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
That's a horror all on its own. All right. This is my favorite new question. So, name a horror movie that needs more love, Nick.
Oh, there are so many. Like, I mean, I love Return of the Living Dead. That's my favorite movie to watch over and over and over again. But I think like horror movies that need more love are ones that are subtitled. Like just overall. Like I feel like more people need to be willing to watch a movie where you have to put a little more work into it because it's that much more rewarding afterwards. Like that's a little generic, but like I got that Bollywood horror box set from Mondo Macabro, and there's no dubbing on any of them. They're all subbed, and it is totally worth your time to like just be like get into it, like do some reading. And it like I feel like just get outside your comfort zone.
Yeah. Do you have favorites? I mean, it could be low-hanging fruit. I don't care.
Personal favorite is a movie that Mondo Macabro released. It's not part of that box set. I believe it's Korean, if I remember. It is called Butterfly Chasing the Woman of Death. And it is psychedelic and weird, and it's one of my like absolute favorites to watch. Like it's it's like Suspiria, where it's just like I don't know what the is going on, but man, this looks cool.
How about you, Julie?
I mean, I agree with Nick. Like, don't be afraid of a subtitle. I feel like I'm constantly surrounded by independent horror, and then I realize that the greater world doesn't even get a chance to see it. They just don't know it's there. And some of that is most of that is so much better than the blockbuster horror. Not that that's bad. Like I said, I tend to like things more than I dislike things. But some of these independents of the last few years are just amazing. And two that I always recommend to varying degrees of success. Apparently, I thought they were universal, but I've learned recently not so much. But one, just a couple years ago, is The Last Matinee, which is Uruguay. So it is Spanish subtitled, and it's like a kind of an old school stabby slasher, one location set in a movie theater. So We love movie theaters. It's already a good setting. A lot of eyeball trauma. If that's your thing or not your thing, a little warning on that. Another one that I really loved, I think it was maybe a year or two older, is After Midnight, which is a Jeremy Gardner written and directed movie. And it's really a romantic drama with a monster. And so the whole thing is built of tension of, is there a monster? Is it in his head? I recently recommended this to my cousin who's trying to get into horror, and then I saw his Letterboxd review, and I was heartbroken because he hated it so much. I was like, but I love it. But I think if you go in and you're expecting a good, fun horror time, maybe that's probably why you end up on that scale of being like, you just snuck in a romantic movie on me. But the emotions are really true and heartfelt, and then all the while you're having this dread, like, what is it outside his house? What is scratching up his porch? What is making his cat disappear? And until the end, you don't know how the relationship aspect's going to work, and you don't know how whatever's outside the house, what is it, what's happening. And then when you find out, it's a huge and beautiful moment for both things.
Oh, wow.
If you loved Mia Goth's like monologue in Pearl, Bria Grant's monologue in After Midnight will destroy you. It's so good.
She's such a great and underrated actress. I really wish she would get a lot more shine, and people will get turned on to her and her work, because Girlfriend has it for sure.
Yeah. She and Jeremy Gardner in this, just the chemistry is really good, and it really works.
So did Nick take your answer, or do you want to answer separately of that, Julie?
Oh, well, I mean, those two were my answers. Those two are the ones that I think need more love. So I sort of snuck one in on Nick's that was a subtitled one, and then my own separate one. So
that works. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I had fun.
Yeah, super fun.
I was happy to get you on. Hopefully you could get a few new subs out of this, because this is just like a little sliver of their dynamic when they have their podcast episodes. And I would heavily suggest that people go and subscribe to it. Put that subscription on. That way they drop a new episode, it's there waiting for you when you open up your app. I love anytime there's like the banter between film critics, because I'm a Siskel and Ebert fan. That's actually what got me into like really going to the movies, not just, your blockbuster. My dad's going to take me to Star Wars and fall asleep, not just that. It was like, no, I want to see this new movie by, what's his name? Quentin Tarantino. Yeah, I want to see that movie. So that transition took place right around the time I discovered, I hate going the cinephile direction, but for lack of a better term, I'll just use that with Goodfellas. That's the person that made me, that's a movie and the person that made me fall in love with the movies per se. But anytime there's like a tandem effort when it comes to like talking movies, it always works well, which is part of the reason why I started this channel and started having these conversations. So I almost felt like every time, like I saw that the handoff is natural. So Nick said something and I kind of leaned back and I waited for Julie to respond. It was like, I don't need to be here.
But we're glad that you are.
Yes.
Hit record, stop it on your way out. So definitely, if you want more of this tandem act, the back and forth, definitely go and check out their podcast. So,
and we don't spoil things, so you don't have to be afraid if you haven't seen the movie. We try very, very hard not to spoil anything.
Yeah. Anything you're looking forward to between now and the end of the year?
Oh, there's so much good stuff still yet to come. As far as our episodes, we're recording one this weekend that I don't think we're super excited for, Exorcist Believer, but after that I think we might do Slaughterhouse, which I personally am very excited about.
I'm very excited to see that. I'm very excited for Goosebumps on Hulu. Like I'm not even like
The Fall of the House of Usher on Netflix series. I got to see the first 2 episodes at Fantastic Fest, and ooh boy,
Yeah.
I can't wait to see the rest of them.
I'm like a Poe nerd too, and it just looks like it's just all of the Edgar Allan Poe under one like title.
Mhm.
Nice. Shout out to Poe fans.
Yeah.
All right. So with that, we're going to land the plane by asking question number 5. Now that you've been here, who would you like to see me have a conversation with on this channel?
Oh gosh, that's a
Well,
trick.
first of all, Julie, two of your friends will be on this month as well. So
I'm excited for that episode.
yeah, I said we got to get everybody on, and they was like, we would love to come on. I was like, I get all 3.
Yeah.
So
that one's
yeah.
gonna be a giggle fest. So prepare your audience for the giggling.
Yes, a lot of giggling between Lisa and Meredith. So
Yes, in the best way.
yes, so much fun. I think that's what it was, like a magnetic pull during Panic Fest weekend. You know, I had my own friends there. Shout out to the Rad Pack. But at the same time, it was like, what are the ladies doing? It was like instantly that was the nickname. What are the ladies doing? And
No, we met you in line, and we were like instant best buds all weekend.
Yeah, the giggling started in the line, so I was like, I was like, why my cheeks hurt? I'm smiling at strangers' conversations, and it just continued all weekend. So, yes, so you can't name them. So who else?
I'll let Nick go and see what he says.
I would say either Dr. Rebecca McHenry, or my favorite person I have ever interviewed multiple times, Grady Hendrix.
I'm familiar with both of them.
I just love talking with Grady. Like, he's a great writer and like rock on tour. And oh man, I'd love to see him answer some of these questions.
Well, if it's not spooky season, there will be more traditional sense to it, but you know, some similarities. So that would be fun. Okay.
Well, I'm going to go local with our, kind of podcast big brothers of Greg and Genius from Nightmare Junkhead, if you haven't had them on before. And, while their podcast now does focus on horror, they used to have a podcast called Nerds of Nostalgia where they talked about mostly 80s movies, but a variety of just, movies we remember from when we were kids. We're all roughly the same age-ish, and, we're really deeply into the weirdest movies in the 80s, and they also have really good fun banter, and like us, they started a podcast before they knew each other very well. So as I've been a listener this whole time, it's been great to get to know them as they get to know each other.
Yeah Same thing with my podcast. I mean, we were both independent screeners, and it was like she was home, so she was like that eBay sniper coming in at the last second. It's like, oh, you got the movie before me. And I could even tell you the name of the movie. It was Judy, the Renee Zellweger biopic. And I really wanted to see it. And I got pissed off that she got it. And I just emailed her directly. I was like, oh, I really wanted to see that. She's like, well, come on. You could be my +1. Didn't know each other. I said, I'll bring, what's your libation of choice? She was like, I love Diet Dr. Pepper. I brought her a can of Diet Dr. Pepper from the fridge, because my wife likes it too. And that was my gift. And we got there early, and we're just sitting there, and it was just a natural banter back and forth. And I'd been thinking about starting a podcast for a while, and I was like, you ever thought about starting a podcast? She's like, oh my gosh, who would want to deal with me? And I was like, I've dealt with you for the last 25 minutes. I think it would be cool. And we did a test run. Nice. I can't remember if it was Gemini Man or Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds or whatever that bad Natalie Portman movie was. And we kind of went from there. So check out the old episodes of the Center Seat. We had fun so far. So yeah. But yeah, that's it, folks. And we kept it under an hour.
Yay.
Hooray.
I want to thank the two of you for coming on again. Once again, everyone, check out their podcast, The Carnage Report. You could find them online, social media, right here. And as I always say, go watch a movie. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.